Oh, hey, didn't see you there. Welcome to this week's episode of Grease Garage Dirty Daily Drivers. It's probably going to be the last episode of 2020. So, for this season finale, year finale, general plague shenanigans finale, I figure we're going to do something a little bit extra special today. It's not a huge job or a huge episode, but we're going to go over my 1962 Mercury Comet. In my opinion, the very pinnacle of Ford design. Just before getting into the meat and potatoes of this week's video, I just wanted to showcase and show off my car. Have a look here, from aftermarket steering wheel, complete with Mercury insert, a beautiful original chrome bezel dash, all the extra accessories, and then a few other things added in here just for fun. We've got a working radio, our lucky smuggler dice, ejectocito cuz, a little shot of nitrous, because, you know, we live our life a quarter mile at a time. For those 65 to 70 seconds, I'm free. So a couple extra things in here. The rear seat is in fact the original seat from this car. We've got a couple here of beautiful aftermarket seats that I pulled out of pick and pull and installed them. They're out of an old Ford Festiva, I believe. That's some modern junky car. And then this aftermarket center console here kind of ties the colors in together, the grays and the blacks. I know she's not perfect and she ain't no show car, but in my opinion, the 1962 Mercury Comet was the last of the really beautiful cars that Ford designed. And I'm fairly proud of it. So expect to see it in a few more videos upcoming. We're going to get her all finished off and on the street again. And yeah, maybe we'll take you along for a show or swap meet or two. Okay, so no more delays. We're going to get into the meat and potatoes of this week's episode here. What we're going to do is install new hubs and drums onto the front brake assembly of this car. And if you want to have a look in here, we're going to take these bearings. These were installed just towards the end of the last season there when I ran the car. So what we're going to do is repack them with grease. And that's what I'm going to show you guys how to do today as well. Okay, let's go over the tools that we're going to need to complete the task that we put before ourselves today. So we're going to use a grease gun loaded up with wheel bearing grease. This bearing packing tool, which is going to make our life a whole lot easier. We also got this tub of wheel bearing grease here as well. I'm going to show you guys the OG old school way of packing bearings. Once we're finished up with that, we're going to need a 1/2 inch drive socket, a 1 1/16 inch socket itself, a pair of nose pliers, and a torque wrench. Okay, you've probably seen a torque wrench of this design, where you twist your dials and you set your foot pounds, and then you can use it to apply lug nuts or take stuff off the vehicle. Unfortunately, mine doesn't go low enough to actually work in this application. This is only going to be held on with about 12 to 15 foot-pounds of force, so we're going to use this old school style torque wrench, where as you torque it, it applies a little bit of pressure, and we can just make out there from 0 to 20. So we'll have to do a little bit of guessing, but we'll make it up with the castle nut. Hold up! If you're doing any kind of jobs with grease or oil or any kind of compounds like that that can permanently stain clothes, it's best to remove any articles of clothing and put them aside that you don't want ruined for life. Okay, first thing I want to do is show you the OG way of doing bearing packing, because there is, to be honest, an easier tool made for it. But we all got to know where we started from, and to appreciate the beauty and simplicity of modern tools, you got to struggle through the old ways first. So, let's dig into it. Take yourself here, a big old dollop of grease, and get it into the palm of your hand. Kids, don't let your mom see you doing this. And if you are doing this, don't do it on your kitchen table. You'll get yourself in a whole pile of trouble there. So we're going to grab one of our bearings. I find it's easiest to kind of put it on your finger as such, like a really insane ring. So you can get a nice clear view of the back side of it, because that's where we're going to see the grease starting to ooze out. And what we're going to do is we're going to force it into the grease that we got in the palm of our hands while gently rotating it. Because what we're trying to do is force that grease inside the bearing. It's a wholly messy job. To be honest, it doesn't take a whole lot of effort, and it's just a lot of manually working the grease into the bearing. But there is easier, faster, cleaner ways of doing it, and that's what we'll get into here next. Now this bearing is just about done. Let me just hit it here a couple more times to make sure we got nice good coverage on the inside there, and I'll show you what you mean. It's a little hard to see, but if I push it in here again, you can just see where it starts to push the old grease out, that kind of darker colored junky grease there. So that means we've actually got new grease forced into our bearing. Hold up. Full disclosure, continuity error, mishap, blooper, real life scenario. I was going to demonstrate using this grease gun, which I thought had grease in it, but it in fact does not have grease in it. So it's going to be played by its stunt double, this grease gun, which does in fact also have wheel bearing grease, just of a different color and manufacturer than the one that we had in this gun. Okay, now what we're going to do is I want to show you guys how to use the bearing packing tool, or the more civilized, easy, quick way to do this job. Grab our bearing, put it on the kind of spout half of the packing tool, and we'll thread on the lower portion. Important thing is to get that bearing sandwiched between the two halves, nice and centered. May have to jiggle it around a little bit just to get it seated very happily. And then torque it down. You don't have to go crazy because you're not trying to compress that bearing. All we're trying to do is just get a good seal between the top and the bottom, so when we apply the grease gun, it'll shoot the grease out the sides. Okay, so we're just going to take this and put it on our grease gun. Just kind of hold it in place there. And I get you guys come in here and have a look. You can see the bearing in there sandwiched between the two plates. So what we're going to do is just pay attention to the bearing walls there, and you'll see the grease being forced through it as I start to pump it in here. Make sure she is firmly seated. There you go. You see that grease oozing out? That is a fully, evenly, beautifully packed bearing. Let me disassemble it and I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, as you can see, you got grease coming out the bottom, out of the sides, and out of the top back portion of the bearing. She is fully packed and ready to be installed on the vehicle. Let me just put her in the tray, and I'll have you guys go meet me over by the car while I finish off the rest of these. Okay, one thing I always like to do before I install new bearings and hub on a car is take a rag and wipe off the old spindle. Just get off the bulk of that old grease that's in there, if there is any kicking around, just so we don't end up contaminating anything with any kind of particles or whatnot. Then we'll take a little bit of new grease, kind of smear it on there. It doesn't have to be crazy thick, because this is a brake component, or near the brakes, but just enough in there to give it a nice little bit of lubrication and make our life a lot easier for the installation. Okay, little quick pro tip here. If you have yourself a car apron, it's really nice to install it right now, because what we're going to do is put all of our components that we need within easy reach while we're on your bottom half of the wheel here. And that way we're not going to damage the paint or get any grease or anything on parts we don't want to have to clean up later on. Okay, before I get it on the car here, I just want you guys to come in here and have a closer look. You can see in here that there already is a bearing race pressed in on either side. A friend of mine did this for me a few months ago, and I'm just kind of getting around to getting it on the car right now. But I don't have any footage of this to share with you guys, so you're going to have to believe me that we used a hydraulic press and a couple of dies and a whole lot of messing around, but we got her in, and I'll show you the easy part now. I'm going to take a little bit of grease and just kind of apply it here to the bearing race to make sure she's got a nice good greased up contact point, which is always ideal because then you won't have any metal on metal fatigue. And what I'm going to do next is grab the bearing here. Now you'll notice these bearings are tapered, which means they're fatter on one end, skinnier on another end. We're going to take these tapered bearings and install them the same way as the taper on the inside here. Just kind of drop her in. You see it sits on that race nice and happy. We're going to take this seat, put it on, and kind of pop it in place. And that is pretty much ready. Let me flip it over now. We're going to repeat the same process on the other side. Kind of lube up that bearing surface there. Not too much, you don't want to go too crazy with it because that'll just mean more cleanup later on. But we'll grab that little guy now, stick him in here, and that's ready to get put on the car. Okay, so we're going to take this assembled hub and slide it right onto the spindle here, making sure everything seats happily all the way in. Looks good. Oop. There we go. Now, at least in the 62 Comet, you'll notice that there is a kind of track here on the spindle itself that corresponds with this washer, which acts as a retainer for the front bearing. It's got a little tooth in it, and what we have to do is index that tooth with that slot, as such. Kind of just slides in. Now we're ready for the nut and the castle and cotter pin. I'll just thread the nut on here. Now this car doesn't have any shenanigans of right hand, left hand. Some older cars did, where it's normal thread on the passenger side, reverse thread on the driver's side, but this car's already been converted away from that. What we're going to do is just get this finger tight, and then we're going to go grab our torque wrench and make sure she's torqued to anywhere between 12 and 15 foot-pounds. Okay, so we'll grab our torque wrench and fire it on here. And now what you want to do is pay attention to that little arm. As we start to tighten it, you'll see it starts to get deflected. It may be hard to see on camera. Right now we're sitting just shy of 10, and we're getting there. I think we'll call that there about 12 or 15. Yeah, that looks pretty good. So you can see the numbers there. I'm just going to kind of duplicate this with my finger. But as you start to tighten it, this rod gets deflected. It gets deflected based on how many pounds of resistance are being applied. In this case, what we were looking for is to get it just in between the 10 and 15 mark. It's not 100%, but it's kind of ballpark enough for what we're doing here. Final step here is we're going to install this castle washer. You can see here, it slips over the nut that's in place right now, and it's got these kind of castellations, and that's just to index against a cotter pin so it doesn't end up getting, so it won't be able to back off while the car's driving. Sort of a little bit of an insurance policy to make sure nothing backs off while you're in motion. Okay, we'll just slide it right there on top of that nut. And let's see how lucky we are today. Might have to give it one little rotation. Oh, look at that. First try. My most sincere apologies to Aaron Cairo and all of the Braille House for accidentally getting associated with all of this shenanigans. Okay, after the cotter pin's in, we'll just grab the legs here with our needle nose pliers and kind of bend them out of the way just to make sure everything is set nice and happy. And that is about that. Okay, I totally lied to you guys. We're also going to install the dust cap there too. Just give it a few little whacks. And now we're good to go. Okay, I'm just going to go repeat this process on the other side of the vehicle, and I'll meet you guys back at the bench. Okay, last quick thing we're going to do is just fire on this drum, just to protect the internal workings there from any garbage or debris that's going to get in there. So I'm going to do a little bit of work on the suspension in a later video. Okay, just slide her on there. Everything looks like it fits okay. We're going to have to adjust the spin there, but and the brake tension, but we're pretty much good enough for where I'm going to end this video today, because I just wanted to get everything covered up, and then we'll get into dealing with the shocks and the rest of our suspension problems we've been having with this car. Okay, cleanup for this video is going to be a little bit more involved. We just want to wipe our tools off and make sure we get most of that surface grease off so we don't have to deal with it when we put them away. Same with the sockets, because everything we've been doing today has been fully messy. And same with our old torque wrench here. Clean any grease on it and keep it for a happier day. I'm just going to finish up with this here, and I'll see you guys here in a few moments. Pro tip. Always put your tools away in their proper place. That way you don't have to spend 3.5 hours of where's the tool every time you want to go do a job. Oh, hey, you're still here. Well, thank you for joining me for this week's episode of Greaser Garage Dirty Daily Drivers, 1962 Ford Mercury Comet edition. I'd like to say thank you so much for tuning in, and this will probably be the last video of 2020. So, from my whole family to your whole family, stay safe, have a wonderful New Year evening, and we'll see you guys all next year. Ooh, fresh out of the oven. Actually, I don't know if we're going to use that. It's kind of a lame joke. Oh, nighty night. Blowing Chevy Small Block 350. Sleep tight and don't let the greasy garage mice bite. Oh, hey, didn't see you there. How you guys all doing? Line. Riding through this world all alone.
Backing up in this world all alone.
You're killing my hardcore vibe here, man.
Sorry.
Whoa. Third time's the charm.
Just doesn't want to leave the garage. It's cold outside.
It's a Harley. They never leave the garage. Just in case you're all wondering, it's a 2011 Harley Davidson FXDWG. That's a wide glide in the Dyna series. And if you have a look at all the mud and grit and dirt on it, you'll see that it actually is ridden outside in all temperatures and weather conditions.
Quiet on the set?
Okay, you've probably seen a torque wrench similar to this, where you can adjust the numbers up and down. Unfortunately, mine doesn't go to a small enough foot poundage number to actually, hold on there.
Chi-Chi, it's supposed to be quiet on the set. Chi-Chi's like the manager. She has to come to all the viewings.
Hold up. Since we're going to be doing a job here dealing with grease and clothes staining compounds, what we're going to do is get rid of any material. I understand human words. Sad days.